Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शंकरं लोकशंकरम्। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। गीताध्यानम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमयं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं परमानन्दमाधवम्। We'll chant the last 4 slokas what we saw last week from 29 to 32. I will chant. Please, all of you can repeat on mute mode. Sarvabhutastamatmanam Sarvabhutani Chatmani Ikshate Yoga Yuktatma Sarvatra Samadarshanaha Yo Mam Pashyati Sarvatra Sarvam Cha Mayi Pashyati Tasyaham Na Pranashyami Sacha Me Na Pranashyati Sarvabhutastitam Yo Mam Bhajatyekattvamastitaha Sarvata Vardhamanopi Sayogi Mayi Vartate Atmaupam Yena Sarvatra Samam Pashyati Yorjuna Sukham Va Yadi Va Dukkham Sayogi Paramo Mataha. We started with a definition of what is meditation. Meditation to remove the erroneous notion about ourselves, about our true self. Effortless awareness of ourself is meditation. we went into that topic. Bhagavan took us there after Shravanam and Mananam. That is, after listening to the scriptures and reflecting on that in the previous chapters, he took us there to meditation in chapter 6. Of course, in chapter 5 also, he touches upon that topic as a connection to chapter 6. And of course, chapter 6, yoga of meditation, is exclusively for that. As we saw, it is actually dealt in detail, this topic in this scripture, than any other scripture. Bhagavan then first said, who is the meditator in the first 6 slokas, then took us an elaborate process of external and internal preparation, what we need to do, both externally as well as internally, in terms of where to sit, what to do, and so on. And then started the process of meditation. In process of meditation, various stages of progress, what one can see. And question comes, how can we practice that concentration which is needed? That also Bhagavan has addressed. Then Bhagavan went into describing the obstacle at a very high level in sloka number 26. Because he did not elaborate all the other obstacles, but he has already addressed that in the external and internal preparation. A lot of those obstacles he has already addressed, which we can take care of by the preparation part of it. But one of the most important aspects he touched upon in verse number 26 about the obstacle, and then started highlighting what are the benefits of meditation. Of course, the benefits of meditation earlier also he touched upon, just to keep us incented so that we'll be able to go in detail about this process. And in 27 and 28, of course, he's giving a lot more benefits of this yoga of meditation. Then in the last 4 slokas, what we just chanted, he talks about the vision of the jnani. This yogi, once he attains that state, what will be his characteristics and what will be his vision? That is what actually we saw in the last class. And today we're going to see the next important session, which is the question answer between Lord and Arjuna. With the 4 slokas which we chanted, the teaching is over. So obviously after the teaching, the question answer session starts, and that's going to be interesting, and we will see that today. Now, just quickly to recap these 4 verses. In the 29th, he talks about the sameness. This yogi, Ikshate Yoga Yuktatma, this yogi sees Sarva Bhutas Tamatmanam. He sees this self, this existence consciousness, this true self of me. He sees that in everywhere, in all beings. All beings also have the same existence and consciousness. So he sees that self in all beings. Sarva Bhutas Tamatmanam. Sarva Bhutani Cha Atmani. All the other beings are also in the self. All the other beings, of course, have the substratum as existence and consciousness. So that also he sees. So he sees the self in all, and all beings in the self. We took the analogy of couple of analogy we took, water and the wave. The wave 1 sees the wave 2. When it sees wave 2, it sees the name and form. But the essence of wave 1, once the wave 1 understands what is the essence of wave 1, that is water, H2O, then that water is there in wave 2, wave 3, wave 4. Sarva Bhutas Tamatmanam. And that water is the substratum of all the waves. That is the basis in which all the waves are there. So that is the second part. Then this is Tvapada perspective. We briefly touched upon that. As from the yogi perspective, he sees that the essence of him is the essence of in everybody. From Paramatma perspective, from that standpoint, Paramatma's standpoint, Yomam pashyati sarvatra, sarvam cha mahi pashyati. So one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, Bhagavan assures that he is not different from me and he is never separated from me. Sachamena pranashyati. So that assurance he gives. So if you see this, again, extending our analogy, the water is there in the wave as well as in the ocean. That is the substratum. So one who sees the water everywhere, and when he sees everything in water, he is never separated from me. At the essence level, the godliness is there in everybody, including in all beings. So that aikyam is highlighted in the third sloka, that yogi abides in that self. That part is brought out in the last quarter of this sloka 31. Sayogi mai vartate. That yogi abides in me. So he becomes one. He becomes one with the Paramatma. That aikyam takes place. That is highlighted. So tat tvam asi. Mahavakya is given in these three slokas which we saw. In the fourth sloka 32, we saw how this yogi, once he reached that state, deals with the world. Atma upamyena sarvatra samam pashyati. So he sees the sameness in the world. He looks at the world. Of course, there are norms and forms for transactional purposes, but he looks at the sameness, the substratum being the same. That is the way he looks at it. That oneness, that sameness, that ekam, he sees everywhere. And because of that, whatever the other's joy or sorrow, he is able to share that because he's one with them because of the sameness what he sees. That substratum he is able to see. When he deals with the world, of course, he deals with the names and forms. Ramana Maharshi very nicely puts this concept, Agnisya Vignesya cha Vishwamasti. In terms of the names and forms, Agnisya Vignesya, the Jnani and the Ajnani, in terms of the names and forms, the world remains the same. Purvasya Drishyam Jagateva Satyam. For the Ajnani, this Jagat is Satyam, in the sense that it is there in the name and form, only he is able to see for the Ajnani. Whereas Jnani, Parasya Drisharshaya Bhutam Ekam. He sees that oneness, Ekam. He sees that oneness, which is the truth, Satyam. Prapurnam is full. Pravibhati, it's shining. That substratum, this yogi is able to see. That point is highlighted. And because of that, the way he deals with the world is to treat everyone as same as him or her. That is the way he looks at it. So those four slokas complete the teaching. So Bhagavan took us from what is meditation, who is the meditator, to the preparation, to the process, and to the benefits, and to the obstacles, and concluded with what the status of this state of this jnani or yogi. And that way, complete teaching Bhagavan has done. Now, having done this, maybe Bhagavan would have sat down or took a cup of water or whatever. And that's the time actually Arjuna felt, okay, the teaching is over. Let me ask my question. Okay. So that comes in the 33 and 34. Beautiful question. And, as you can see, as we are going to analyze that question, we are so happy that Arjuna has asked this question to Bhagavan himself. And let's see what is the question and the depth of that question, and then what answer Bhagavan gives. That also we'll see analysis. So it's very important to dive deep into that. So let's chant the 33 and 34 together. Over to Lakshmi.
Arjuna uvacha yoyam yogastvaya proktaha samyena madhusudana etasyaham na pashyami chanchalatvastitim sthiram chanchalam hi manah krishna pramadhi balavadrudam tasyaham nigraham manye Vayoriva sudushkaram.
So these two questions, first, of course, he just touches upon, and then the second, it goes a lot more deeper in terms of justifying why he's asking that question. So why these questions come to him? Let's analyze that first. Obviously, as the title you can see, it says it's not going to be practical, Krishna. It's not going to be practical. I appreciate all your answers. I know you walking me through the process and the advantage and what will be the end state, how the yogi will be looking like and all that. And you highlighted so many things about the about yogi, starting from verse number 7 onwards, how he is samahitaha, how he is actually shidoshna sukadukeshu manapamana, all these things, you highlighted with respect to the situations and with respect to the object, samaloshna, samaloshtashma kanchanaha. That is, whether it is a lump of gold or lump of mud, he looks at everything is same. With respect to the objects you highlighted, and with respect to people, you enumerated so many varieties of people, and you also told me that samabuddhir vishyate. He looks at everybody is same, and you substantiated that recently also with other benefits. In 27, you said prashant manasam. He gets the prashanta manasam, and he gets the sukham uttamam upaiti. Actually, to him, you also told me, I remember, that sukham uttamam, that uttamam, supreme bliss, upaiti, it comes to him. For the yogi, the sukham comes to him. He doesn't go to the sukham. It comes to him. That also you highlighted. And all these things I see, but you are asking me to go through this process and controlling my mind, but it's not going to be practical, because mind is something which cannot be controlled, or is too difficult to control. It doesn't say cannot be, but it's too difficult to control. So in this first sloka, that's what he highlights. It's too difficult to control. It cannot be continuously. I can do once in a way, or maybe out of the 7 days, if I'm sitting down for the early morning for meditation, maybe 3 out of after so many months of practice, etc., maybe few days I'll be able to have that steady, steady abidance. so to speak, in that nirvikalpa samadhi. Maybe that is what we will be able to achieve, but I cannot be continuously abiding in that. Madhusudana. Madhusudana is actually one way of, there's so many ways actually Arjuna addresses Bhagwan. And in this particular case, in this context, he addresses him as Madhusudana because, Bhagwan, as we all know, he destroyed one Asura called Madhu. This Asura was supposed to be taking all the Vedas and burning it, supposed to burn it away so that nobody will get this knowledge. So when this Asura was attempting to do that, then Bhagwan felt that he should be taken care of. And he went and fought with him and then took care of him, Madhu. Madhu Kaitabha is another, Kaitaba is another Asura in some other context. So like that, Madhu is one of the popular, can we say, one of the top 20 names of Bhagwan. Madhusudana is one of the very popular names. So Madhusudana, Yoyam Yogatvaya Samyena Proktaha. Samyena, this yoga of equanimity, yoga of maintaining this sameness, what you told me, Proktaha, what you taught me. Yetas aham na pashyami. I am not able to see its theorem. I cannot be steady on that. I don't see it. Because chanchalatvat, because mind is so restless, and hence I will not be able to see that steadiness. Once in a way I may be able to see, abide in this self, but I cannot really abide continuously. That I don't see. And you are saying that only if I am able to abide continuously, then I'll be able to get all the benefits. So it is not practical. In that context, it is not practical. And he goes on in the next sloka also, highlighting, because it is too difficult to bind the mind. First of all, finding the mind itself is a big task. As Swami Ishwarananda says, first you find the mind, then kind the mind, cajole it, you make it, comfortable. Then put a boundary on the mind, bind the mind. Then keep minding the mind. Find the mind, kind the mind, bind the mind, and then mind the mind, keep minding the mind. But it's very difficult to bind the mind because chanchalam hi mana Krishna. Oh Krishna, mind is chanchalam. It's very restless. Of course, he repeats the same thing what the Lord has given, but he tells something more also, which is what we're going to dive into. Pramati balavat dhrudam. Pramati, it's turbulent. It has got so much of energy, and it is very strong. It's unyielding. We're going to see a little more on these things. These three attributes what Arjuna is highlighting. So because of this, aham manye tasya nigraham. Nigraham. So controlling this, aham manye, I consider, I think it is too difficult. Sudushkaram. Dushkaram is difficult. Sudushkaram is very difficult. Too difficult. Like what? Like if we want to control the hurricane, Vayu Reva, when you want to control the hurricane or the heavy wind, it's not possible. So it is like that. I will not be able to control this and have that enduring continuance of abiding in the self, which you are asking me to do to get all these benefits. And that you're saying that, I can get it as I start practicing meditation. So I don't see that because the mind is this, all this. So that is highlighting. So let's dive a little more deeper into these three or four keywords what he is using to justify that it is impractical. The idea is actually once we dwell on this, then we'll be able to relate a lot to our situation also, because we would have already come across those who have started, Shravana Mananam Nididhyasanam. We would have already come across this. And even otherwise also in the day-to-day life also, we know how the mind is so uncontrolled, so restless. We know that. So that way, it will be helpful even if we have not started our meditation, it will be helpful. And of course, as we have started our meditation and keeping progress, there also it will be very helpful. So that way, let's dive a little more deeper. We saw some of these terms. We just touched upon this. We introduced ourselves to this topic. So let's go a little more detail on these topics and then take up some of the words what Arjuna is using. And that way it will help us to understand more. So the general, first point is about the general obstacle what we come across, so to speak. We have so many other things to do. Why spend half an hour early morning, for meditation? So I don't want to do meditation. I know I got other calls to attend. I got to look up WhatsApp. I got to take care of the email, etc., etc. That gave you one reason. The other reason could be fear of missing out. If that half an hour in the morning, it is so important to catch up my global partners, because otherwise they will be closing their shop and going back to sleep. Before that, actually, I should do some phone calls with them and see how the progress of the project is going, or whatever, or something else. This important message which has come, I should share it with others. So if I don't do it, then I'll be missing out the opportunity of sharing this beautiful message has come up in WhatsApp. So, that kind of a fear of missing out, and the other could be time management, no, I cannot, definitely with my busy schedule, I cannot squeeze in this half an hour. No, why don't you do 15 minutes? Oh, no, 15 minutes also is so difficult. 5 minutes. Okay, I will try 5 minutes. Finally, something like that goes on in our mind before actually we sit down for meditation. The solution is prioritizing. What is that actually we want in life? So when we look at it and sit in a corner and then analyze, then if this is what actually we are looking for in terms of walking the spiritual path, then the priority automatically is assigned to this 15 minutes in the morning, and then we find that time. So prioritizing is a solution. We saw some of the other 2, 3, 4 we touched upon it last week. 2, 3, 4, 5. So sleep is one normal thing. Obviously, the solution is we have to have enough rest. We should not actually reserve that half an hour for sitting there in the altar meditation, seat of meditation, and then think that, okay, I can take some rest there. No. The other way of addressing this sleep is auto-suggestion. Now, I'm going to be alert during this 15 minutes. It is my time, and I'm not going to allow anyone to interrupt me. I'm not going to allow the sleep to take over me. So that kind of auto-suggestion, if you can see, the powerfulness of this auto-suggestion. I'm sure most of us would have experienced when we go to bed, when we want to get up at 4 o'clock to catch a flight at whatever the time, then even though you kept the alarm at 4 o'clock, because you did the auto-suggestion before going to sleep, 3:55 you will wake. Your mind will wake you up. So that kind of auto-suggestion really helps in terms of asserting that, no, I'm not going to sleep. And then, of course, if at all that sleep comes, holding the breath while inhaling or exhaling, that also helps. Then this distraction, vikshepa, we see in there, outer and inner compulsions of this agitation that comes. that we saw. And of course, we know why this outer distraction from outer thing comes. Our senses are all always going out, right? But fortunately, at the seat of meditation, um, 3 out of the 5 senses we have controlled, because we are closing the eyes, or almost closing the eyes, and we are sitting in a quieter place so that we don't hear anything. And obviously the seating arrangement, etc., we talked about. So there is no um, touch related agitation, but still our nose is open. It will start smelling something in the kitchen or whatever. So we'll have to be careful. So the outer sensation is not there for the distraction. Of course, Bhagavan has addressed this in the 5th chapter itself. In the last part of 5th chapter, I think around 26, 27th sloka, that where he has actually put a seed for meditation, and you control all your senses, and then start breathing in a regular, orderly manner, etc., etc. You mentioned there. The inner compulsions, of course, whatever that comes up as a desire, that we should immediately be careful and then bounce back. We saw that last week. Then Kashaya. Some of the long-term the feelings or the thoughts which are suppressed in our subconscious mind, that will start coming up. Once you took care of the sleep, once you took care of all the other things, and distraction also you're minimized, then these impurities from somewhere, from nowhere, it comes up in terms of some rajasic action or rajasic thought process, or some passion. All these things comes out internally. So that immediately we should flush it out. One of the references, that is the examples given, is that when the undigested food comes out in vomiting, you don't look at it and analyze it, you just flush it out. So like that, these kind of things, when impurities come up, when the kashaya comes out, then you should immediately flush it out and then move on. Then, of course, the other obstacle, what we started enjoying this half an hour. Oh, nobody is disturbing me in the morning half an hour. In the name of meditation, I can go myself and isolate myself and then plan my to-do list and all that. So that also we should avoid. Meditation is not for that kind of enjoyment. So all these things actually is the preliminary things to be taken care. And Bhagavan is firstly going beyond this, and Arjuna is going even beyond that also in this. Let's look at some of these keywords. Chanchalam, of course, Chanchalam is one thing which Bhagavan also is used in verse number 26 when he talked about the obstacle. But he is elaborating that restlessness in the other 3 words: Pramati, Balavat, Dridam. So in 26, Mana, Chanchalam, Astiram. Chanchalam and Astiram, it is actually restlessness and also unsteady. That part Bhagavan has already used and told that, it will go. It will be unsteady. But what you should do is you should bring back. You should bounce back and then abide in true self. Like that, he has given the solution. But what Arjuna is going is, Bhagavan, yes, you said just Chanchalam, but that Chanchalam intensity is so high that it is impractical, because sometimes it becomes Pramati. It comes like a turbulent, with so much of energy, with so much of speed it goes. And with that energy and with that speed, the restlessness and agitations, it just takes you into churning mode. You know, um, it keeps on grinding you with such a speed, with such a energy, and it makes you tired also. And like the hurricane, when it crosses, it leaves some damage, right? Like that, the tiredness, and you all your um, um, senses and instruments are all becomes very, very tired. So that kind of a power it has got, and that bhalavat, so powerful, and it tries to overcome the intellect. Sometimes actually the intellect tries with whatever way it can bring the mind under control, but this thought is so powerful, and it overcomes the intellect also and conquers it and takes the superiority. And it is unyielding also. It just grips, once it grips a particular object or particular a thought that I want that, it becomes like such a strong hold on it, and it never comes out of it unless actually I yield to the mind. It becomes so strong. And Bhagwan Adi Shankaracharya ji compares it with Tandunadvat. So Tanduna Nagavat. There's a Nagam. There's one Tandu Nagam, I believe. One type of Nagam. And that Nagam, once it grips, it will never yield. That's it. In some of us, actually, we used to call it as a group of what is that one? Udumbu. Udumbu is one kind of a being which actually, once it grips, it is so strong. Udumbu grip. So it is like that. So such dridam. So we can all relate to this. This pramati, balavat, dridam. It's so relatable, and that's why we are so thankful to Arjuna for asking this question. That all these things actually we will go through if we are not done already, and Arjuna is preempting by asking all these questions and then telling the Bhagwan that it is impractical unless you give a solution for this. So let's see what Bhagwan says as a solution to this. And first is addressing, is too difficult, but is it impossible? That is the aspect what is addressing. Now, as we know, certain things may look like very difficult. It looks like almost impossible, but with proper means and proper knowledge, we will be able to make it possible. We all know this. I mean, we have, for example, when we started learning the bicycling, and obviously, initially it looked so difficult, and our father or brother or sister who helped us to learn the bicycling, went through that teaching patiently, and we also practiced patiently, and then we learned it. And when we see some of the, for example, the movers, when they move the furniture and all that, such big furniture, so easily they're able to move. Initially, we will think that, hey, how can this, two people who are so lean, doesn't have any muscle at all, how can they're going to move this big furniture like this? But there are means, they have the technique, they have the practice, and they have learned those techniques, and they have practiced also, and they are using the appropriate tools, and so easily they are able to move, right? And like that, we can relate it to so many things which look to be impossible, but by proper knowledge and practice, it is possible. Even when we started driving in this country, I'm sure most of you would have experienced this, especially if you've driven there in India and come here and started learning. I'll tell you a true story. When Sushma started learning driving, the driving school instructor, when first day after going around, when he dropped her at home, he was so upset with her. And he also told her, please don't tell your husband what happened today in terms of your driving. Sushma asked, why? If you tell him how you drove today, your husband will leave you. Because the first day when she started driving with that instructor, she started driving on the left side of the road, the busiest road on the busiest time, the 28th Street in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Fortunately, nothing happened. But of course, afterwards, you'll have to work on and of course, the practice and so on, like that. Of course, I also laughed with that instead because, for me, when I started learning first time, I'm sure all of you would have experienced it. So in India, whenever I see a pothole, I used to honk, thinking that pothole will move. That kind of, initially we all start with, which seems to be, driving, we have to think of 101 things. And how do I actually, focus on the road? Like that and all we start. Then over a period of time, after we get the appropriate knowledge and practice, then we are able to see it automatically happening, right? That is a technique actually what elaborating that aspect in Bhagavan's answer. It is difficult, but it is not impossible. That is the aspect he is bringing out. That is in the next sloka.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha Asamshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Grihyate Asamshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Grihyate.
Mahabaho. So Bhagavan now this time is turned to address Arjuna. Mahabaho. So, mighty armed, you won so many armies. You even, challenged Lord Shiva, and then of course got his gift from him. Such a person, you are asking this question that you are not able to control mind. I mean, that is kind of the way actually, he's setting the stage and saying that it is possible. So, and of course, we all know the story of when Arjuna was young and with all the others, how he focused on the eye of that bird, whereas everybody else was focusing on everybody else and the eye, whereas Arjuna was focused only on the eye. To that extent, actually, Arjuna was able to actually use his mind. For him to say this, that it is very difficult to control because his mind is restless. So that shows the intensity of this problem. And hence, Bhagavan wants to address him and then tell him that, yeah, it is possible. No doubt. First, very nicely he's answering to start answering the question. First, he acknowledges. Asamshayam mano durnigraham chalam. Is no doubt that mind is restless and it is difficult to control. It is no doubt. So this is a very beautiful way of teaching. When somebody comes with a challenging problem, which is really a challenging problem, first, of course, the teacher or the mentor addresses, yes, it is a difficult problem. It is. First acknowledge that. Then once we acknowledge that, then the person who comes up with that kind of a challenging situation because he is going through, he or she going through that challenge, then he feels so comfortable. Oh yeah, okay. I mean, it's not that actually it is me. It is the general feeling that, it is accepted that this problem is difficult problem. So that itself gives a lot of confidence in that person to start listening and then working on the technique, what subsequently you're going to tell. So Bhagavan uses that technique. And then he says first, don't worry, it is difficult. I'm not disputing that it is not difficult. It is difficult. Two, but Kaunteya. So now this time he is addressing a son of Kaunteya. Kaunteya actually, has gone through such intense sadhana by serving our guru, and that person's son you are. Because he wants to introduce that practicing part of it. So he is actually bringing in that context. Arjuna, you are the son of Kaunteya, who has been actually going through intense sadhana of serving such a difficult guru. So being that son, you will be able to control your mind by abhyasena cha vairagyena grahyate. It is possible to control by practice and dispassion. Abhyasena cha vairagyena grihyate. So by practice and dispassion. Now, it's very important to note these two words, practice and dispassion. So we'll dwell a little more on that, and let's see what Bhagavan says in the next block also, and then we'll go a little more detail on this.
असंयतात्मना योगो दुष्प्राप इति मे मतिः वश्यात्मना तु यतता शक्यो वाप्तुमुपायतः असंयतात्मना योगो दुष्प्राप इति मे मतिः वश्यात्मना तु यतता शक्यो वाप्तुमुपायतः.
Very good. Yatata. So asam yatatmana yogaha dushprapa. Dushprapa. Yogaha dushprapa. For whom? Yoga is hard to attain. For whom? Dushprapa. Hard, very difficult to attain. This yoga is very difficult to attain. Dushprapa. To whom? Asam yadatmana. One who does not have the self-control, who cannot have this practice, have self-control and continuously practice. That kind of a lack of self-control if a person has got, it is dushprapa. It is difficult to attain. Two, but vashyatmana yatatha. Yatata, one who strives, one who puts effort, concentrated effort. Yatata. For him, that is vashyatma, one who is self-controlled. For him, with proper means, upayataha. Upayataha with proper means. What the proper means here he refers to the practice and vairagya which he referred in the previous sloka. That is the proper means, upayataha. By proper means, the furniture can be lifted properly. What are the proper means? The knowledge and also the practice. Both are needed. Right? And with the proper means, actually the driving can be made, with appropriately learning the driving rules, and at the same time vairagya. If you start thinking about 1,000 things while you're driving, it's not possible. So you filter out all those things. You detach yourself from all those 998 things. And the two things what you should focus on, only that you keep. All the other 998 things you should, with dispassion, you should remove it, detach yourself. So with proper means, upayataha, avaptum, it is possible. You will be avaptum, you will be able to gain, and shakyaha, it is possible. You will be able to. It is possible, shakyaha, to gain avaptum with proper means, upayataha. This is my opinion. So he's actually qualifying it. Actually, take it or leave it. It's my opinion. I can guarantee you that by this it is possible to obtain. So practice and vairagya. So that is the way actually we'll have to make it happen. One or two more points on this. We do have time. So let's dwell on this practice and vairagya. What does this practice and vairagya do? Vairagya, we all know, it's the dispassion. It is actually detachment. When we say detachment, it's not that actually, we're going to, whatever we have now, we're going to throw it away and then, go to a forest or something. No, it's not that. Mentally, we need to see what each object or the environment, the situation, the people, what is that actually the role they play in our life. And to that extent, we deal with the environment or the objects. And we should be in a position when it is to be dropped, we should be in a position to drop it. What is needed in the transactional world, of course, to that extent, we use the object. But otherwise, actually, we should not be hanging on to it. So that aspect we'll have to understand. And then, of course, practice. Practice, of course, means, continuously working on it. It could involve the gathering of the appropriate knowledge, and also the know-how wherever it is needed, and applying it. So when practice, actually, that way it works on the equipping the intellect with more and more justifying knowledge, so that when it comes to that, the knowledge, the intellect will be strong enough for enforcing this discipline and enforcing the self-control, right? That's where the practice over a period of time helps to the intellect to become stronger, so that the mind will not fight like what we saw in the previous example. Mind should not overtake intellect, right? If intellect is subdued to mind, then, even though intellect says you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, alarm has gone up and all that, intellect keeps saying, mind will say, no, it's very cozy, let me sleep. And so you're given up to the mind. So, but whereas if intellect is fully equipped, that no, I have to get up at 5:30. And that is strong, enforcement. If it has got that power, then obviously mind yields to that, and then, we'll work on. So practice actually that way helps us to strengthen the intellect. And what does vairagya do? By dispassion, by filtering out, all the unwanted attachments what we have on 1,000 things, what happens to the mind? Mind gets purified more and more. The raga dvesha is reduced. So more the vairagya, more is the purification of the mind. And as we know, purification of the mind is very important to get to the goal, to get the clarity of the knowledge, right? So that way, when practice works on strengthening the intellect, vairagya helps us to purify the mind. In other words, we can say vairagya helps to weaken the mind in that aspect, in terms of reducing the raga dvesha. and hence increasing the purity. So both work hand in hand, they complement each other. And this, over a period of time, helps he or she to be steady and focused in meditation and get the benefit, and help him or her to abide in the self forever. That is the promise what Bhagwan is giving. And it is very logical also, and it is very practical also. Only thing, we'll have to work on it. Like anything else, we'll have to work on it. But it is so logical that there's practice to help the intellect to get the strength, and vairagya to get the mind to get purified, and so that they can start working together, which is important, so that all this pramati, balavat, dridam, all these things can be addressed, and hence the person can focus on the meditation. So that is what he's suggesting. Now, Arjuna is convinced. Arjuna is convinced, saying that, okay, you address that part. I have to do practice. I have to do with vairagya. I have to do practice. I understand. Arjuna does not want to leave it at that. And he wants to, it happens, right? Whenever we have a doubt, when we get the answer for that question, what we have, we are satisfied. But we want to kind of simulate and see what happens. If such a thing happens, then what will we do? So that kind of a what if scenario our mind goes, as a student of learning, especially now that you got Bhagwan's attention, and he wants to really paint that what if scenario, and then ask Bhagwan, what is your response, right? And that's what actually, he's going to go to the next question, which is a very important question. Basically, what he's asking is very much relevant. We'll also be able to relate that question. Just to give a prelude, he's saying, okay, now I'm convinced. I'm going to do nididhyasana. I'm going to do meditation. Yeah, Shravanam Mananam, I've done, and I will start my nididhyasana. Okay. Now, supposing I pursue this path seriously, somewhere before I get the enlightenment, before I get to that yogi state, supposing I drop the body, then what happens? I lose everything. I neither enjoyed the material world, the pleasures of material world, because, I've been coming every Saturday morning here, early morning, leaving aside all the other work, and then listening to the pravachan and listening to you, Bhagwan. And at the same time, I could have done so many things on Saturday mornings or other days whenever, I'm pursuing. So I lose both the things. So that scenario, he wants to paint it and see what Bhagwan answers. That is actually in the next sloka. What if scenario?
Arjuna uvacha ayati shraddhayopeto yogachalitamanasah aprapya yoga samsiddhim kam gatim Krishna gacchati ayati shraddhayopeto yogachalitamanasah aprapya yoga samsiddhim Kam gatim Krishna gacchati.
This time, Arjuna addresses him as Krishna. Hey, Krishna. Krishna actually, one of the meanings, of course, several meanings are there. One of the meanings is the one who takes care of removing all the afflictions of the devotee. In this case, of course, he wants this doubt to be cleared. So he's addressing Krishna. Shraddhaya upetaha ayatiha. So one Shraddhaya, one has got, he is talking about two category of people here. The one category is Shraddhaya upetaha ayatiha. that is endowed with faith, Upetaha, but ayati, there is effort-wise is insufficient. He is actually striving, this seeker is striving with all the faith. He is going through Shravanam, he is going to Mananam, he is doing Nidityasanam, he is putting whatever he can. But before actually he puts sufficient effort, he drops the body. Effort is becoming insufficient, so he is not able to see the yogi state. He is not able to attain that yogi state. Before that, he lost his body. Okay. So what happens to him? He has actually, left all the things and then gone to ashram and, started fully concentrating on this, etc., etc. Okay, that could be one category. That could be one of the types in this category, first category. The second category is yoga jalita manasaha. This, he is practicing yoga. I mean, he is practicing meditation. He is, of course, listened and he's reflected on it. He's doing it, but his mind keeps wandering. He's not able to really control his mind to the extent what you wanted Bhagwan in the previous slokas. So, but his mind is actually because his restlessness and it is wandering. But he is putting effort. He's putting effort, but his mind is wandering. That is the second category. So in both the categories, not having attained the yoga state, aprapya yoga samsthitim. So having not attained this state, supposing he drops the body, kangadhim gachati. Where will he or she go? How will his life end? I mean, from where, he is kind of lost. It is kind of a double whammy for him. And that's what actually, he's highlighting in the next sloka. Let's chant that.
Kachinno bhaya vibhrashtah छिन्नाभ्रमिव नश्यति अप्रतिष्ठो महाबाहो विमूढो ब्रह्मणः पथि कच्छिन्नो भयविभ्रष्टः छिन्नाभ्रमिव नश्यति अप्रतिष्ठो महाबाहो विमूढो ब्रह्मणः पथि.
This time, Arjuna is returning back with addressing Bhagwan as Mahabaho. So he is also mighty armed, right? Lord is also mighty armed. So, Mahabaho. That person who has fallen from both, that is, he is neither attained that self enlightenment, nor he has actually made use of the pleasures of this world. In both ways, he has fallen. Ubhaya vibhrashtaha. In both ways, he has fallen. So then he is asking, does he not perish like a cloudlet? Kachit na nashyati chinna abram iva. Chinna abram iva. The cloudlet, it's a nice analogy, poetic way of bringing out this analogy very nicely. The big clouds start coming, and as we watch the cloud, there is one small part of that cloud, because of the wind, it gets separated. And then that wind, because it's a small cloudlet, it's a small part of the cloud, because of the heavy wind, it just tosses around. And that cloudlet because heavy wind, it gets spread and becomes thinner and thinner and thinner, and then it just vanishes. It is destroyed. So he's using that analogy and saying that this wind has actually caused that cloudlet to vanish. So like that, won't this person be fallen from both because of the wind of the death when the body has to be dropped? And he has not actually, he or she has not completed that whole cycle in terms of enlightenment, then fallen from both, won't he be perished like the cloudlet? And how he will be supportless and deluded. In the path of following Brahma Vidya, if this happens, then he will be supportless and deluded. What is supportless and deluded? Upradishta Vimuda. Upradishta, supportless, is neither has the security of the material world nor the strength of the spiritual enlightenment. In both ways, he lost it. It's a double whammy for him. Apradishta. Vimuda is deluded because he is in a state where he doesn't know where else to go from the state where he is in, because he cannot go back. He lost all the things in the material world, and at the same time in spiritual world also he is not able to proceed further. So he's kind of lost. So that way he is suffering from both supportless as well as deluded state. So tell me what will happen. And Arjuna goes on saying that only you can answer this. Next sloka, please.
एतन्मे संशयं कृष्ण छेत्तुमर्हस्य शेषतः त्वदन्यसंशयस्यास्य छेत्ता न ह्युपपद्यते एतन्मे संशयं कृष्ण छेत्तुमर्हस्य शेषतः त्वदन्यसंशयस्यास्य छेत्ता न ह्युपपद्यते.
Chetana upapadyate. Hey Krishna, only you can clarify this doubt. This doubt of mine, may etat samshayam. Arhasi chetam asheshataha. You have to completely remove it, because I am investing, or whoever is investing in the spiritual path, they are investing a lot, they are sacrificing a lot on the other material world. All the others they see enjoying, quote unquote, on Saturday mornings or Sunday, whatever, but I'm investing. But you have to tell me what happens in case if I suddenly have to drop the body. So only you can tell this, because and no one else. He says no one else, only you can say, because Bhagavan has told him. We recollect the earlier chapter, especially the 4th chapter. Bhagavan has told him, I think in the 5th sloka or 6th sloka, he's told him that Arjuna, you have also gone through many lives, and I've also taken of many lives. Because of my Maya, I used my Maya and take many lives for some other reason. Only difference is that you've forgotten all your previous births. I remember each one of them. So that aspect he was highlighting in the 4th chapter, early 4th chapter. So that Arjuna remembers that, here is Arjuna, Lord, who has told me that, he remembers all the previous births, and he knows that others are also taking many births. So that way he will be able to know what happens if I die now, having invested so much in the spiritual path, and if I die now, under these two categories, if I belong to, then what happens? Only you will be able to tell me. So that is emphasizing in this. Okay? And Bhagavan says, He gives a quick answer, which we'll see next class. He says, all the good actions, whatever you invested, it never goes waste. It will be useful. And also elaborates this question in terms of answering, again, taking those two categories, what Arjuna was asking. And in each category, what happens to that person, and where is he or she born, and what circumstances actually he or she is born, how the karmapala actually kicks in to make sure that it creates an environment for each one of those categories of persons to pursue further, so that they'll be able to take from that opening balance, which was a closing balance now, from that onwards, they'll be able to build it up and attain the self-realization, again, become the yogi. So that aspect actually is highlighting from 40 to 47, which we will see in the next class. With that, 40 to 45. The 6 slokas, and then 46 and 47 actually is a concluding and also a seed for the next chapter. So that 7, 8 slokas we'll be able to see in the next class, and that will be the last session. So we will think about this question what Arjuna has asked, and those two categories of people, and also dwell on about the mind control, how the practice and the vairagya will help in terms of our focus in meditation. All the things will as well. I'll try to